Every second that you spend fixing messy data is money lost. Stop drowning in complex spreadsheets and instead use this bulk cleaner that makes data cleaning fast and simple so you can start making money from your directories as soon as possible. My name is Casey and I am the solo developer of Directory Dynamics, and today I'll be walking you through a quick tutorial on how to use it. So obviously we're going to start by uploading our file. I'm going to stick with the smaller one just so it's easier to show you the data that's being changed. And as you can see, there's a lot going on. So if you ever get confused what you're looking at or what a tool does, just look for the nearest question mark. This one's not super informative. It just tells you how to get more information on each tool by hovering over it, and then you can see what that tool does. And so we're going to start with text capitalization, and we're going to be changing the capitalization of the name column. It's really important to have a uniform appearance on your website. It makes it seem a bit more credible. So we want to start with something easy, which is making sure the capitalization is all uniform. So just make it easy to see the changes. It's now all in lowercase, but title case, of course, is the standard, so we'll go ahead and put it back. Next is text spacing, and so maybe your data has some extra spaces in it, or maybe it has leading spaces. Oh, that is a trailing space. Oh, it's a little bit of both. And so in text spacing, you can easily, once again, select the column and then select you want to remove double spaces, leading spaces, or trailing spaces. So most of the time you're going to want all of those. And then there's also the option to remove all spaces. Be careful with that because it can't be undone. And I don't really know an instance when you would particularly want it, but there it is. And so now you can see there's no more double spaces and there's no more leading or trailing spaces. So now we're going to move on to the first tool that I think makes Directory Dynamics really unique, and that is flag data. What you're doing is trying to identify data that is likely not supposed to be in your data set. And so I'm using the example data set with 35 hiking trails. And so data that's really common to get in hiking trails that you don't want is going to be streets or roads or sometimes ponds. And so I'm going to specifically be checking the name column for any names that have the word streets, roads, ponds, except I shouldn't have made them plural, but I type what I say. But of course, there's going to be instances where maybe it says Pond Creek Trail. And because it says trail in the name, it's pretty obviously going to be a hiking trail. So you can also add protected words. And what these do is if a row contains streets, roads, etc. in the name column, it will flag it unless it has one of these protected words, in which case it won't flag it. So throw a couple of those in, and then we'll click done. And as you can see, we have one flagged. And this data set isn't too crazy since it's only 35 rows, but for the larger data sets, if you want to only see the flagged rows, you can come over to Data Display Tools and select Flagged. Or maybe you just want to see the clean ones, and so you can select Clean. But we're going to go ahead and put it back on Flagged. And there's a lot of columns happening, so I'm going to change the column visibility. And I'm only going to select flagged and flagged for. And then I'm only going to select name since that's the column we're looking at. And so now we can easily see, oh, this row was flagged because in the name column it says road. But when we come over to check it, it says fishing and conservation area. So this is very likely still good data. And so we're going to come over here and we are going to select road and we are going to resolve it. And so we'll want to put it back on view all rows, but now we have clean data. Moving on to another thing I find really helpful for directory data specifically is clustering, where you would have rows with very similar names But because they weren't exactly the same, it could be difficult to identify that, oh, all of these rows are referring to the same thing. So in my case, hiking trails. And so you can run a cluster analysis. Again, I'm going to do it on the name column. And it will cluster any rows that have similar words. And so you can see we're getting a lot of junk because obviously it's going to have hiking and trail. And so we're going to click resolve. And something really cool with this is if you go over to adjust clusters and you go to advanced settings, you can add words. They're called stop words. And essentially it's just saying to the program, hey, do not cluster it because of this word. And so you can still cluster a name like Sleeping Lion Hiking Trail. Maybe you have the row Sleeping Lion Hiking Trail, but you also have North Sleeping Lion Hiking Trail. You don't want them to be flagged. You don't want them to be clustered because of the words hiking trail, but you do want them to be clustered because of the word sleeping lion. So all adding the stop words does is say, don't cluster it because of this, but it can still be clustered even if it includes those words. And because we clicked resolve, it took the words that were clustering them and already automatically added it to the learned words. And so now it won't cluster more rows because of that. But obviously there's going to be other common words in hiking trails like park, path, trailhead. And so we'll go ahead and run the analysis again. And now that we've included those stop words and filtered out a lot of the unwanted data, we're now actually getting good results. But looking at Cooper Creek, you don't know just by looking at the names, are these two hiking trails half a mile apart or are they 1,000 miles apart? You can't tell just by looking at them. And it's a pain to constantly have to go check Google Maps. And so if you come over to Data Map, you will have to get an API key. There's going to be a tutorial for it right here. I'm going to work on that after I finish this video. But you just get your API key and then enter it here. Next, you're going to choose the name that you want to display on the column, on the pins on the data map, and then you just show the map. And you can right away see, okay, these are states away from each other, and so they're very likely not related. Even if they are, it doesn't matter at that point. So we'll go ahead and keep them. And so now all of your data, all 35 rows, has been checked for similar data. And so that moves me on to one of our final tools, which is don't delete the last one nearby. And what we'll do is say, hey, program, look at the reviews, and I want you to get rid of any with less than 13,000, unless, and you tell it where the Google Maps link column is, so mine is just called location link. Then you'll say, unless within a 10-mile radius, there would not be 3 trails left. Again, just to phrase it another way, this is saying, get rid of everything that has less than 13,000 reviews, unless it would leave less than 3 hiking trails within a 10-mile radius. Then you'll just click the view data on map, and it right away tells you 7 are going to be deleted. 22 are not going to be deleted because of map coverage. They don't meet our filter criteria, but we want to make sure the map has as much coverage as possible. And then 6 data points meet these expectations. So we'll come over here and we'll enter the same API key that we used for the data map. And then we'll select the column that we want to list the pin name on. So kind of like how this one says Cooper Creek Wildflower Area. And then we just show the deletion map. And it creates clusters, and so as you zoom in, you can see it break down into smaller clusters. And then zoom in far enough, you get all your individual data points. And so, Cooper Creek Wildflower Area, would you look at that? And then you can see all the different data points that are going to be deleted, kept, even though they don't meet the filter requirement, but you want to keep at least 3 and 10 miles. And then you can also see the ones that met the criteria and would be kept no matter what. You can easily delete the ones that didn't meet the criteria and then refresh your map to see those. So now when we scroll in, it doesn't have any more to be deleted. And so then when you're done cleaning your whole data file, you scroll all the way to the bottom or click the export button. And here you can choose what columns are going to be exported. So visible columns are going to be the ones that you have showing right now. And so this is where messing with your column visibility can change things. So if you have it set to the visible, none of these non-selected ones will be included. But you can also select all original columns. And then maybe you don't want to include columns like flagged for or flagged. And so you'll go ahead and uncheck this if you don't want to keep those. And as you're messing with it, you can see the columns that will be exported down here. So then you just have to click your export and it will come up over here. And so that concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you find this really helpful and can accelerate your directory development timeline.